Faithmaxxing, the art of perceiving reality beyond the five senses. Now, I know that already sounds insane to some of you. Beyond the senses? What, are you crazy? But hear me out. At the turn of the 18th century, with the rise of the Enlightenment movement, brought onto the world many good things like electricity, physics, astronomy, and crucial philosophical ideas that still shape our world today. But with it, the cult of pure reason grew as well. This led to many philosophers, scientists, and great minds alike to stab themselves in the third eye, making themselves blind to the divine, trading instinct for calculation and reducing revelation to mere coincidence. Before reason took the place of God in the collective psyche of man, the world was not seen as a machine that operated under unyielding laws of physics, but rather as a play where gods and spirits divinely intervene in day-to-day life. Men looked to the stars for guidance, they trusted in their instincts. Faithmaxxing was the way of life for men of action. A general would march just because he had a vision while he slept. An explorer would set sail across an ocean filled with a sea monster on the map, guided not by a proven path but by conviction. The impossible was attempted and often achieved because man believed beyond the five senses. This way of being gave man a different kind of courage which we lack today. The kind of courage that whispers to a man in the face of impossible odds to move forward, for destiny walks with you. But with the Enlightenment, this irrational impulse towards greatness was scorned, laughed at by the thinkers of the time, similar to Redditors who see themselves as wise but yet will never even reach half the accomplishments of the irrational men in 100 lives. And this alone is probably one of the worst things that came with the movement. Men with no backbone, with no courage, now had an excuse to be cowards, and worst of all, it made perfect sense. However, the Enlightenment movement didn't eliminate religion as many claimed it did. Oh no, it merely replaced it. Reason became the god of the century, and its priests wore the robes of scientists and academics. And like any other religion, it came with its commandments. Trust only what can be seen, measured, repeated, and confirmed. Trust what your senses and logic can explain. Everything else, instinct, revelation, prophecy, was declared heresy. To dream became foolish. To act without certainty became reckless. To trust the unseen became ludicrous. But with this new faith, which promised to free us from superstition and tyrannical priests and kings, was equally as cruel. Where men once prayed to God, they now bowed to probabilities and statistics. Where they once followed vision, they now obeyed data. The academies and universities opened their minds, but with it, they shut their third eye. The fruits of labor that came with reason are good and have served us well, but what we sacrifice in return has equally harmed us. When reason no longer became a tool in the hands of man, but rather man became a tool in the hands of reason, and with every passing century its grip tightening around the collective unconscious of man, forcing it to repeat the prayer of the rationalist. Only what can be proven is real, and only what can be measured matters. This exile of faith and imprisonment of vision reduced a world once alive with God, science, and destiny was reduced to simply a machine, a matrix, and man himself along with it became just a number with it. But before we continue, if you guys are enjoying the video so far and would like to support me and my channel, the best way you guys can do that is by buying some merch at Fighting Philosophy, link in the description, or by subscribing to my Patreon. I don't have anything on there yet, but I'm definitely working on some stuff for there. Now, back to the video. When man bowed to reason, he became a slave to something much worse than irrationality and stupidity, fear, all while calling himself wise. For a world ruled by calculation is the breeding ground for cowardice. The man who listens only to numbers will never march into the storm. He will never cross the Alps. He will never dare. Why? Because the numbers will never add up. They will always tell you to stop. They will tell you it's not even worth trying. And the modern man obeys. He worships statistics, hides behind probabilities, and waits for the perfect time. He will call this prudence, rationality, logic, but I tell you, those are merely the words of slaves, slaves of fear. The poisons of this new religion are everywhere, but nowhere do I see this more clearly than in the black pill community. A worldview that claims to be brutally rational, mercilessly honest, and yet is nothing more than cope. Men stare into data charts and symmetry graphs and declare themselves doomed. A philosophy built on reason, not to act. Because that is what the black pill really is, cowardice. Instead of admitting they're scared of talking to the birds, they give you a list of why they're actually really wise for not doing so. Instead of stepping into the unknown, they shield themselves behind studies and statistics. The black pill is not harsh truth, but rather a sophisticated form of hiding. This is reason taken to its most extreme ends, a logic so airtight it suffocates the very life it seeks to explain. The black pill kills whoever takes it before the battle even begins. But Faithmaxxing is the enemy of despair. Where reason says the path is blocked, faith makes a way. When probability says you're finished, faith declares the enemy is already yours. Where the black pill sees inability, Faithmaxxing sees possibility. For faith is not blind, oh no, it sees further than reason and senses further than any of the 5 senses. Faithmaxxing is not about sitting quietly wishing on a shooting star. Faithmaxxing is not a passive belief, but rather an active defiance. It is vital motion. It is stepping into the storm when everything tells you to turn back. The senses only see lightning, the waves, and the threat of drowning. Reason tells you to stay on the shore, but faith takes the oar in hand and starts rowing towards the dark sea anyway. Faith is not a leap into light, but the first step into unmarked territory. The path is hidden, the rocks look loose, the climb seems impossible, yet every step cuts a trail where none existed. Faith is not certainty, it is making certainty out of the uncertain. Faith is also the divine fire. To embrace it is to risk being burned into ashes, or rise above it only now cleansed of all the impurities. Faith is also death, not the end of life, but the end of the old self. The Faithmaxx is to bury the man of excuses, to crucify the coward. Faith is the funeral of hesitation. It is the death of the slave to probabilities and the birth of the man who dares. Reason clings onto life at all cost, but faith knows that some parts of you must be burned away. Something old must die so something greater can live. Faithmaxxing is that death, the courage to sacrifice what is small in you so what is destined in you can rise. The rational man waits for the perfect circumstance to strike, but the Faithmaxxer makes circumstance. The sculptor does not wait to see the statue, he already sees it within the stone. The musician does not wait till he hears the song, he already hears it before the first note is even played. Faith sees what the eyes cannot, hears what the ears cannot, makes reason out of the unreasonable, and moves as if the work were already finished. Faithmaxxing is supervision. To act not because the evidence is visible, but because the outcome is inedible. Faithmaxxing is the sense that is never ignored by the greats. Don't be fooled. The man of faith will always look insane to the cautious. He is a mad sailor staring into the hurricane. To the safe, he is a fool climbing a cliff with no rope. To the stifled, he is reckless for stepping into the fire. To the calculating, he is delusional for fighting battles the logic says can't be won. But madness is only motion misunderstood. The stifled call the moving man insane because his courage exposes their fear. They need him to be mad because if he is sane, then their excuses are lies. If he is sane, then their stillness is cowardice. So they call him delusional, reckless, unhinged, anything to avoid facing the truth that if he is alive, they are not. The man of faith will always look insane to the present, but become obvious to the future. Today they laugh, tomorrow they imitate. The madman of faith is only mad until he wins, and then he becomes a measure by which all others are judged. Faith is not blind, it sees further than reason ever can. The storm hides away until you sail into it. The mountain reveals the path only to those who climb. The fire purifies only those who endure its heat. We are living in the age of reason's cage. The numbers, the charts, the statistics, they all say the same thing. Stay still, play safe, obey. If you listen, you will live as a probability and die as a statistic. Faithmaxxing is the only way out. It doesn't reject reason, but slaps it back into its place, a servant, not master. Faithmaxxing strips the mask of logic away from fear. Faithmaxxing spits in the face of probability and makes a step anyway. Yes, it is dangerous. Yes, it is terrifying. Yes, your excuses make perfect sense. To row into the storm, to climb the mountain, to burn the old self in fire, none of it is safe or comfortable. But what is life with no risk or glory? What is a safety net if it means dying without a fight? Let me not then die ingloriously and without a struggle, but let me first do some great thing that shall be told among men hereafter. To die to the man on the cross so the greater self can live, to risk everything, ridicule, ruin, even life, to achieve your greatest potential. Yes, you will be called insane. They will say you're delusional, reckless, unhinged. Let them. The man who moves has always been mocked by the ones who stand still. Madman is a name given to the courageous by the cowards. The choice lies in your hands. You can remain a prisoner of sight, of reason, of excuses, or you can step into the arena and finally start playing the game we call life. The world belongs to those who Faithmaxx, to those who trust vision beyond the senses, and remember, this path never reveals itself to you while you sit there and wait. It only becomes visible once you start.